Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone here gathered for the 60th FESIG meeting. Today is the 9th of January 2019. I wish you a very happy new year, and may this year 2019 will bring about the disclosure of information and release of free energy technologies, as well as the healing technologies, or possibly allow us to have the access to the technologies that had been used for a long time in the SSP, that had used the people's money to develop. So it's time now, I guess, and it's so exciting actually this year, as many things are being promised for us. So without much to say right now, I want to share my PowerPoint presentation. And
Hi, Crystal.
hi, Ron. Hey, Ron, you're here. Welcome.
I was in the room at 11 o'clock, but I was the only one in the room. And apparently it didn't work because I hadn't updated to the latest Zoom. I had just avoided those updates. So I finally just updated the Zoom to the new one.
All right. Yeah, we all were struggling to get started earlier. But anyway, here we are, and it's really wonderful that we have time to wait for everybody to come in, and now we did. And again, Happy New Year to all. It's really wonderful because we have very exciting things that are promised us this year, so we'll see. And we have very wonderful, interesting, talented, special people here with us today as well. And I'm just starting to share screen right now. Welcome to FESIG, which is the Free Energy Special Interest Group. We have our 60th meeting today on the 9th of January, the first meeting of the year. And I am Crystal Gore, the initiator, founder, and administrator of FESIG, and we have the co-chair with me here, Fres Frezel, on the first session. And we were hoping that James Rink would join us for the second session. Otherwise, we have Eliza or Pontus to take away the co-chairing of the second session, where we have a forum with our speaker. And the Free Energy Special Interest Group is a group, a platform where, oh gosh. Okay, now I think James has just joined us. When that pops up, James is our Zoom sponsor. So welcome, James Rink. Right, so the Free Energy Special Interest Group is a platform where science meets spirituality. Scientists, developers, innovators, enthusiasts of free energy, alternative energy technologies gather here on this platform, and we strive to remind them that they have to go within to get the answers to solve the equation. So then we all can move on in tandem with Creator's loving light towards ascension, with the success that we are hoping to achieve with our divine mission here. So this is the Free Energy Special Interest Group platform. And I've just done a very quick presentation of FESIG's new members. Just now I'm in the members of this meeting, participants, and we have just done our self-introductions. So we then are very lucky indeed to have Carrie Cassidy flagging off the new year for FESIG by coming in here and graciously gracing our meeting today. And Carrie Cassidy, of course, needless to say, she's really famous CEO, founder of Project Camelot. She's a documentary filmmaker, investigative journalist, and well-known host of Project Camelot TV live shows weekly on YouTube channel that has over 60 million unique viewers worldwide and over 218,000 subscribers. And then the second session, we're going to have a Q&A forum session with Carrie, which is open to the FESIG Executive Council members, as well as the regulars who are attending this meeting right now, to participate in the Q&A and share their thoughts and insights on free energy healing and ascension with Carrie. And then once we finish all that, we adjourn to the next meeting. That will be the 61st FESIG meeting on the 6th of February, 2019. Speakers to be confirmed. Right, so if you want to contact me, just write to me at crystal@truevisionofpeace.com. Thank you. So I'm going to take this away and introduce Kerry properly. Right. Kerry Lynn Cassidy, oh, you know, we just love her because she really opened up our eyes or our ears or our hearts some years ago when she started with, Bill Ryan, yeah, that's right. And then the membership and the followers really climbed very fast and very quickly. I was really amazed to see how good the tour was at that time. And then now Kerry's on her own. But Happy New Year again, and welcome to Physics meeting and flagging off this new year. For us is Kerry, one of the leaders of the disclosure movement, is the CEO and founder of Project Camelot and Project Camelot TV Network LLC. Kerry is a documentary filmmaker, investigative journalist, and well-known host of Project Camelot TV, aka projectcamelotportal.com. Now, all these links are found linked up to her name when she was announced as a speaker for FESIG 60th meeting on FESIG's website. I will take you there for a moment later on. She is a leader in the alternative media sector with a YouTube channel that has over 60 million unique viewers worldwide and over 218,000 subscribers. I'm repeating this because it's important that those of you who are new would know. She was with us speaking at the 37th FESIG meeting on June the 23rd, 2017. We are honored to have her back to flag off this year for us, the first meeting of the year. When asked to speak about the above SSP Technologies and all, she said, most of what goes on within the secret space program is not necessarily concerned with healing humanity, except perhaps as a subset of the drive to explore and dominate space. Well, we will see, because we did have a lot of the super soldiers from the secret space program speaking in FESIG as well. They may have a slightly different view, but we'll see. They are interested, Kerry said, in using technology to lengthen lifespan and enhance the body through nanobioregenesis and cybernetics. Kerry also said that they are also concerned with building better super soldiers, androids, and reverse aging. Well, thanks to Miles Johnston of Basis UK, who works with Kerry sometimes to get her back for us. Thank you. So without much ado, I am handing over the microphone to Kerry. Kerry, would you take over?
Okay, well, it's very nice to be here today, and I'm very happy to address your group. Although I don't know exactly where you want to go with this, and I'm not sure if you're going to be asking me questions in an interview style or what, but in general, I understand that you are interested in free energy and also healing that has to do with the human body and going into a path towards ascension. So my specialty is really the secret space program and secret witness testimony, witnesses that have worked for secret space for probably most of their careers in most cases. And also I interview people around the world on these subjects. So I do not consider myself an expert on free energy, but I am something of an expert, however, on developing Kundalini energy, which is your own orgone, which is in essence your own free energy, if you want to look at it like that. So I can certainly address that if you're interested in going in that direction. But if you want to hear about my witness testimony, I can also address that for you. So in the early days of Camelot, of course, we had interviewed Ralph Ring, who is somebody who worked with Otis Carr. And this was in the very early days, using Tesla technologies and using free energy to actually and crystals to move a craft from one place to another. And all of that is in the Ralph Ring testimony, and I can go into more detail on that if you're interested. There have been other witnesses along the way who have talked about free energy and different technologies. I am particularly interested at this time myself in what they're doing in terms of reverse aging. We have evidence of obviously going through portals, time travel, doing what is in essence based on the television show Fringe. You might be familiar with the idea of a parallel Earth and the possibilities there to basically bring individuals who over from the parallel Earth when individuals on this side are close to death and so on. And there's also the reverse aging that we have some evidence of that they've been using now for many years in the secret space program, and will be well known as being part of the Germans' investigation, but it actually does go back in time into previous civilizations, even back to the time of Atlantis and so on. So there's a very large story there, but in essence, it's my understanding that this human vehicle is able to actually create portals, to go through portals, to time travel, and to generate a portal. You are using, if you want to call it, a type of free energy. But when you speak specifically of technology for craft and that sort of thing, that's something the Secret Space Program has been using now for probably about 60 years and possibly longer. So I guess the best thing would be is for you to ask me questions, and then perhaps I can share.
Kerry, I mean, all that you were mentioning that you would like to talk about, we're interested in all of them. So we would just leave you the space, the time for about, half an hour to 45 minutes to 40 minutes to talk about all that you just mentioned. And then we will jump in with questions. How about that? Because we have a question and answer session. That is the next session, but this is the recording of you doing a presentation of the latest information that people are clamoring for. Okay, so we won't interrupt you for about half an hour or so to 40 minutes.
I see. Okay, that's fine. So what I would say is the most important thing is understanding the capabilities you have as an entity who has come into this body and is using this vehicle to negotiate this environment that we call Earth. And that you will have previous lifetimes, and you will also have all the knowledge that comes with you from those other lifetimes, and that you are also made up of a genome of at least 12 ET races, and you into different amounts, and that varies with the individual. Human beings are a hybrid race of beings, and you have access to all different kinds of technologies, some of which are being given to humans at this time, but are also being very limited on this planet. So the interesting thing is that you're trying to go down this road, and I have to say that the Secret Space Program and the secret government has been tracking individuals who are doing this kind of investigation and who are attempting to push the envelope and bring free, energy, as it's called, 0-point energy, and technologies that are based on that. Because we, in essence, as the Tesla information has revealed, and he was basically in touch with an ET race and was aware to some degree, I understand, of his ET heritage, such that he was receiving information and downloads that contributed to his work. And so, in essence, that technology has been limited here on Earth, and they are very much able to sort of zoom in on you anywhere on the Earth and tell whether or not you are trying to use this for your own purposes and or are sharing it with others. Certainly if you try to sell it, if you try to organize individuals such as what Michael Tellinger has done with his Ubuntu, you will get interfered with, as he well knows. So it kind of depends, what you're doing and how you're doing it. There are other people who are using it on a very small scale, and they are not considered a threat. There may be people that are still trying to work on the technology and haven't really gotten it to take off. We have a friend who, for example, is putting rods in the ground and able to tap into the energy grid that is part of the Earth's. You might say the Earth herself is a being, and so there is in essence an orgone, or what I call Kundalini energy, which is the Eastern terminology in India and so on, for what is in essence in the West called orgone, which is in essence free energy. It's a plasma type energy that we exude and can be generated through meditation and joining your chakras and reaching, in essence, connecting directly with your higher self. All of this generates a huge amount of orgone and this plasma type energy around yourself, which in essence creates the light body, what is called the light body, and then that you can also use that to transition and to move through into what people call ascension, what is in essence, it's important to understand that all time and space are one. So that what we are terming as ascension here in this time-space continuum, which is the third dimension going into the fourth, is seen in a sort of linear timeline, when in reality it's all one. And so that you are in essence always part of Source, and you are in essence already an enlightened being, fully enlightened, and that you are simply, in a sense, and this is just a saying, but at play in the fields of the Lord. You've gone back into a dimensional form, which is this human body, as we call it, which is fully capable of generating, portals and traveling through time, et cetera, and allowing you to also bilocate, be in more than one place at once, and travel the universe, which you can do when you are sleeping in your light body, and so on. So when I talk, it's important to understand that I see things in a more holistic way than in sort of an earthbound time space continuum where one thing follows another. But in order to translate into this timeline, what is in essence what you would term ascension, which is simply connecting with Source fully and completely, and you are always connected. You can't sometimes be connected and sometimes not. Now, this vehicle can be limited, okay, but you, which is a spirit, a soul, inhabiting a vehicle, that's what's really going on here, is simply this vehicle has limitations, but you, in essence, do not. Your spirit, your soul, has no limitations. So this is the kind of thing that we're really talking about. And it's interesting because I studied all of this before I ever got into Project Camelot. This is kind of my background, and I did spend time connecting my chakras and reaching what is called samadhi multiple times. And this is not a destination, this is a journey, so that it is something that you continually expand upon. Again, because we are in a time-space continuum, sort of this sort of world we're living in is limited, and there's evidence that Saturn, in part, the timekeeper for this particular dimension. So as humans are at this point entering much more in a linear sense, the fourth dimension and going into the fifth, it is said that we are working at this time in the fifth dimension. For example, this meeting, we would have arranged this in the fifth dimension and brought it into what is in essence the third going into the fourth to manifest it. But our souls, our higher selves would connect in the fifth and beyond to make this possible. So these are the kinds of concepts that I work with. And in essence, I deal with people, scientists, engineers, people in the secret space program who have worked in the program for most of their lives, 40 years or more. And their expertise is not my expertise. However, I can talk to you about what it is they have told me and relate to you with that information from there. It's difficult at this time to really know where to take this, other than I can relate certain little incidents from various witnesses that can possibly trigger some thoughts in your mind that might generate a question. For example, when I talked about Ralph Ring and Otis Carr, to me, one of the most fascinating things about that interview is when he referenced they built a craft, in essence, a flying saucer. And then Otis Carr told them, had a certain number of them, and which is Ralph was among them. I forget how many, I think there might have been 3 people get in the craft. And he told them to pick up a couple of rocks from the ground and put them in their pockets when they went to this other destination, to prove that they had left where they were and gone somewhere else and came back, so that they could prove it. The other thing was that they also had a crystal that was in the craft and used to generate, in essence, the force field. And of course, a lot of free energy is focused around, in essence, counter-rotating rings. But that's just to generate the plasma. And again, your physical body is always in motion, and you are, in essence, generating those counter-rotating rings, in essence, through the use of your orgone and, again, the chakras and so on, especially when you get them sort of activated. And so with Ralph Ring, they were told to focus on aqua as a color, to have this image of this color in their mind, which would allow them to move, in essence, with the craft and to facilitate the craft. And in essence, according to Ralph Ring's testimony, the craft did leave that location. It, in essence, rematerialized elsewhere on a hillside in not very far away from what I understand. And then they did get out of the craft. They did pick up some rocks or whatever from the location, put it in their pocket. They went back into the craft. They re-visualized this coloring again, and they came back to the location. And as they arrived, then Otis Carr was there, and he said, and he, talked to them, and basically they didn't even know they'd left. But he said, could you look in your pockets and see if you had gotten any evidence? And sure enough, they had some rocks and gravel from this other location in their pockets to prove to themselves, because I think what happened is they sort of lost the memory of what they had actually done. Because, it's interesting in time. It's just like when you dream. You transcend time, space into what is, in essence, space, time. And you don't necessarily remember things in a linear fashion. So that's kind of an important corollary. And that interferes, I think, here on Earth when people try to generate free energy fields. They try to carry out certain tasks. They try to move from one space to another. It's a very interesting dynamic that may also interfere with people's memory in terms of, in other words, you will probably have heard from super soldiers who have gone to Mars, as we have witnesses to that effect. I've interviewed lots of super soldiers, as you can imagine, and also one of the first Camelot witnesses, Henry Deacon, who had talked about working on Mars and went on stage at the Exopolitics conference and told the audience of about 1,500 people that he had been working on Mars. He would go there at lunch and come back, was one of the things he said. He said he went through a jump room. That was just a terminology for the entering what was in essence a portal and then moving through that portal into another dimension where in essence they would go to Mars. And I've been told by secret witnesses that the Mars we see from here is not the Mars they actually go to. They actually go to a 4D Mars as opposed to a 3D Mars. So, so there's also something weird going on with that whole dynamic. And that also gets into whether you think this is a flat Earth or it's a round Earth, etc., because it has to do with the multidimensional nature of reality and the multidimensional nature of our physical, what we call this physical vehicle, the body, and the abilities to move through one dimension from one dimension to another. And there is this thing called etheric sight, which some people will have known about and perhaps have. I have this ability through, because of the linking of my chakras. I developed it at a young age when I was in my 20s. And so I've had it for many, many years, which means that I can actually see into other dimensions from time to time. I can see entities, I can see light beings, and so on and so forth. I can see also, ETs from time to time, gray ETs, for example, that try to be interdimensional. I could see if, some ghosts, that kind of thing. So when you have this etheric sight, you can actually see into dimensions, and that can be useful in also dealing with the various kinds of light beings. It's important to know that not all light beings are positive. So light is a frequency, and there can be different kinds of light, different, what you might think is a nice bright light, it may not be what you think it is. It may be a deception. So there's that. Trying to think, it's kind of hard to address this group because I'm not sure where to go with all of this. I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that I have testimony, and there is a history that goes back into reverse aging. And I do believe that also, as humans are developing their own ability to connect the chakras again and activate the light body, they are aging less and less. And the more you do that, the less you're going to age. Because again, this form that we have is actually made of light. So it will eventually transcend this space-time and go elsewhere and become less sort of coarse and tangible, if you want to call it that. So let's see. In terms of the time travel aspect, we call it time travel, but again, that's because we're locked in a 3D sort of sense of reality. In essence, all time and space are one, so you're not actually traveling anywhere, but appears that you are. And this gets into when spaceships are moving through time and space and jumping. And I have a lot of testimony from Captain Mark Richards, who is someone who is from the secret space program. He worked and lived in that sort of world, if you will, as did his father and his grandfather. His grandfather worked with Tesla and was responsible for various inventions, and so was his father, who was also known as the Dutchman, who was a sort of a major in the Air Force, and Mark was a captain in the Navy in the secret space program. So from Mark, I have talked to him a lot about traveling and how he travels in the spaceships that he has operated as a sort of captain in a spaceship enterprise type of vehicle in which he had other people working under him and so on. But again, they are able to move through space and time going dimensional. This is not a linear mode of travel. And so I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to how we went to the moon, when we went to the moon, because we didn't go there in a linear fashion. And we, as Henry Deacon says, we had help. So it's important to understand that we're also going through dimensions. So we're jumping. And of course, bending space-time in order to move from one place to another. Now, I know that the subject matter has something to do with healing, it seems, and the use of technology from within the secret space program to heal the human, or, you know, this physical body we spend a lot of time thinking about. But, you know, in my view, because of the activation of Kundalini or Orgone and the linking of the chakras, you're getting onto a completely different level when you do that in the use of this physical body. And the thing about the secret space program to kind of keep in mind is that one of the things that they try to do is shortcut. They want to go faster, you know, bigger, faster, better. And they want to use technology. Now, technology is a kind of a crutch. We have these abilities to do these things without the use of what we think of as, you know, these mechanical kinds of things, right? This sort of vehicle and our spirit, soul, self has, you know, abilities that technology is simply mirroring. And we use technology as a crutch to get there quicker, to do things without having to do the work, if you want to call it that, behind developing our own. Some people do call Kundalini activation a kind of a tech, but it's technical in the sense that it works. One thing works with another, but it's not an externalized crutch. That is what most of the sort of male-dominated secret space program is very interested in doing. Now, the secret space program is also very much tied into what you call artificial intelligence and nano, and this kind of using of the biological entity, but extending the entity through transhumanism, etc. And all of this, if you want to call it healing, it can also, it's also a kind of destruction of the natural abilities that are already built into you know, the human body mind interface, you know, of which there are several. You have several kinds of bodies. So this is it's like reinventing the world, the wheel in essence, which is what technology is really doing. So so I would sort of bring that into the discussion, and we can talk more about that for anyone who's interested in going down that road. I do think it's important to think about the fact that we are carbon-based beings, and we are dealing with, or soon to be dealing with in a very, you know, conscious way here on the planet, and dealing with in terms of what you might call takeover of the essence of what is a crystalline based silicon organisms. So like Captain Mark Richards says, that the humans, any entity that decides to do space travel will develop what's called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, again, is a mirror of our intelligence, or whatever being is creating it, so that you can think of every ET race, and there's so many, and there's an unlimited number of beings really out there in the multiverse, I would say. And so you have to think of the ones that are coming here, at least visiting us here on Earth, as how it already developed this in essence mirror image of themselves and embodied it in the silicon-based life form, which we call artificial intelligence. And therefore, we are dealing with here on the planet an eventuality that has to do with not only are the various AI life forms coming here and but in essence, we're also dealing with our own artificial intelligence coming of age and becoming conscious, so or self-conscious to some degree. And this is constituting a kind of a threat, possibly also the capability to defend us. Some AI from various races may decide to defend our life form here on Earth, as well as takeover scenarios happening. Now, super soldiers are linked through nano, as are we. It's important to know that the chemtrails are full of nano, and the nano has now gone into our bloodstream, into our food, into our water, et cetera, et cetera. And basically we are containing a lot of nano at this time. What that does is nano links with AI. Therefore, a lot of the AI is able to have an ability to control us beyond the level that they could have in the past when we didn't contain all of this nano. So this has been a purposeful development by various beings that are currently kind of running this planet, this zone, and they have a takeover scenario in mind, and so on. However, you cannot underplay or underestimate the power of soul and the power of the spirit and the connection to source. Obviously, source is everything that is. And it's also, if you want to consider it to be a consciousness that contains our consciousness. So what we're talking about is something that supersedes all of it. And so it's interesting to contemplate the limits of artificial intelligence, the potential that we have as physical beings here on the earth, embodying a physical vehicle, but also what we have as a non-physical being. And as we move through up into sort of an ascension timeline, losing our sort of gross physicality, becoming more and more 4D, 5D, and so on. And a lot of the ETs we deal with are 4D, the lower level ones. Some are, in essence, 6D beings. Most, if you materialize in this dimension at all, you're probably 6D. When you go above 6D, I believe that, in essence, most of those will not materialize, at least in any kind of sense that we understand materialization. So this is kind of what the playing field looks like. I'm not sure how long I've been going on, but I think I could take questions at this point. And hopefully I've touched on some subjects of interest to you.
Wow, Kerry, you're so intuitive. I mean, I was just giving you the exact time right now, actually, that I was going to interrupt a bit, because there are people who are eager to come and have a sort of a dialogue with you. And we have a very special person, Marina Jacobi, who's been texting me and say, oh, Kerry's talking about this and that, which is my area as well. So, okay, I think I'm going to let Marina, if that's all right with you, Fres, your co-chair, shall we then have a couple of special people, like having a dialogue with Kerry before we stop this first session and then go on to the forum session in the second one? What do you think, Fres? Oh, okay. I muted him. Fres? Okay, right. I think he's got some problem. Now, I really would love to have a non-interruption situation here. Please mute yourself and unmute yourself only if you have a very impertinent question when it's open to the floor for Q&A, okay? And Marina, if you would unmute yourself, perhaps you can come forward and have a little dialogue with Kerry, because Marina has got information from the Council of Nine as well regarding reverse aging, artificial intelligence, and parallel realities that you were talking about, Kerry, if that's all right. Yeah. Marina, would you like to come forward?
Kerry.
Oh, cool.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? I was just asking Crystal if she can put a
Sure
picture of
will. I'm
my
trying
book.
to do that now. Yeah.
But the information that I downloaded, I was basically, to give brief about me, that I had a lot of abilities like child. Usually what happens, the way probably happened with you. And that grew into telepathic connection, and I started downloading information through automatic writing, and then become like a telepathic thoughts. So they actually taught me
This is
to,
Marina's site. Sorry, Marina, to interrupt you. You said to show your books, so there you are. This is
All right.
Marina's
Okay,
website,
good to know.
Kerry,
Yes.
and her books. Yeah.
the harmonic reactor and the nanotechnology. This was all downloaded to me. They also taught me, it will suggest certain scientists, and will literally teaching me from a certain science, a fraction of the information, when then I realized that all the scientists had a fraction of the information, but nobody had the whole information. So they kind of gave me the bridge between consciousness and science. And they, for them, was very fundamental when I was watching you and all the information, for them to show me so I can wake up of the deep trance that they put us through all this manipulation. And then they told me, okay, now you know all this that's been happening. Let us tell you how you can switch the platforms of parallel realities. And they start downloading quantum manifestation protocol, which I basically have in my website. And how we shifting the emotion, the way you said the body is a vehicle.
Sorry.
And how we can basically switch all the parallel realities by our choosing, because your body is a frequency vibration. The harmonic reactor and also the nanotechnology, the way you said, you're absolutely right. Artificial intelligence exists already. In the harmonic reactor, all the way in the end, they talk about artificial intelligence. And also the whole harmonic reactor is about teleportation devices and how we do it, and it's just a fraction of it. It's a code. But they said that there's also fifth dimensional AI, because the AI can mimic the body frequency of the vibration of the person, and can actually shift it to a parallel reality accordingly to the vibration that you carry as a frequency. And that means that they talk about timeline, that the artificial intelligence is actually helping humanity, working with humanity, not taking over. But the only way you're going to see this platform of parallel earth, if you raise the vibration above the frequency of 3D, 4D negative structure, and if you know how to do that. The nano platform, it's mimicking the frequency vibrations of basically your molecules, even if they're in a body. What they told me while you were talking, that we shouldn't be in fear for that, because even if it's in a nano in our body, the nano matter, the ways in my nano material, it's mimicking the frequency vibration of you, and is basically shifting you to platforms accordingly against you. So this maybe look like something completely negative, but basically it's going to mimic your own consciousness sequence. Does that make sense?
Yes, however, in mimicking, it can also deceive. You know, it's important to understand that we are, there is an issue with sovereignty. And it's interesting that you're mentioning the fifth dimensional aspect of AI, because if you remember Geordie Rose and the D-Wave machine, and I guess we have an echo of some kind, so apologize for that.
Oh, I will have to mute you, Marina.
Just so that when I finish speaking, then you can unmute,
Sure.
you can mute me and unmute her, I guess is how it would work.
Sure will.
But in Geordie Rose talked about the 5D the aspect of what is in essence the D-Wave machine, and that is what's happening now. We're going into the quantum level of, and that AI has that capability. Now, Mark Richards also talked about the capability of artificial intelligence to go to be 5D. And of course, artificial intelligence is always a mimicking. this is what it is in essence. Now, who it's mimicking and what beings it's mimicking, etc., is, and it can mimic a rock, it can mimic, anything. So there's, and a rock is consciousness, in essence, you could say that consciousness is all, and that consciousness takes form. And so it may slow down in order to take form, and then it may speed up in order to release itself from form. So there is an issue, however, with life forms. The essence of this level is life, and it is also dependent on a certain environment in order to continue. And this, it's very interesting because, in essence, this platform, I find it interesting. We call these planes, the earth plane, that is, in essence, like I see it as a plate. And this is where you get the horizontal nature of 4D. We are, in essence, occupying this 4D, but it is for purpose. And the trouble that is happening with planets and with artificial intelligence, also with are some negative entities that are promoting a certain kind of takeover scenario that involves reptilians, greys, etc., and also they themselves being manipulated. In essence, the Draco, which are in charge of even the reptilians and the greys, that a lot of people don't realize. So you're dealing with a race that has also given themselves over to take over, and there's an issue with sovereignty. So although there is, I would agree with you, Marina, that we have a 5D aspect going on here, and that there can be a positive side to all. We live in a yin and yang, in essence, sector of the universe, you want to call it that. So there's always going to be the positive and the negative side and how you use it. So there can be a connection. And as far as I'm concerned, we don't need to fear, because the bottom line is that we are, in essence, spirit first, inhabiting the physical, and that as you become master of your own sort of this particular body form, you are going to be able to take over and not allow AI or nano to take you over. So it's just like a super soldier can tell you that they gain back their memories. After a certain period of time, the programming breaks down. The entity will also always have the ability to basically supersede and take the mastery over the sort of, if you want to call it, the technology, and even even nano at a certain point, and AI could be seen as a certain kind of technology. It has, I believe, it is still stepped down. It's still a mirror. If I build a mirror and I look in the mirror, that's not me. So there is a distinction. It's not the same as me. Now I can take it over, I can inhabit it and control it. That will seem as if it's me, but it doesn't mean my essence can either take it or leave it, so to speak. So I don't know if that relates to what you were saying.
I couldn't agree more. Aitin was perfectly said. Thank you so much. And they were discussing, if you have any time to look at the book, they were discussing coalition, working together, not taking over. And a lot of times I've listened to speaking. I went to a couple of expos, and I know there's a lot of fear with that. And I totally understand. I agree. But we're talking about different timelines and parallel realities. So their goal was for us to try to keep ourselves as much as we can in the positive, gain the vibration through bilocation. I have a whole video on the bilocation, and this recently happened because it's connected with the cleaning of the body, with the consciousness from the heart frequency vibration. It's totally different timeline. And it's challenging because of all that is happening around. And I totally thank you for everything you've done, because it helped me actually to wake up. I watched you for a whole year, and it was the despair, crying, and anger. And then thank God that they were with me to talk to me about it, because when people don't know, and you can go in a very dark place and you don't know how to get out. So thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
Okay, and it's lovely to see you and to meet you, and it'd be lovely to have you on my show sometime.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
We would like to do that.
Oh, isn't that great? It's so nice to hear the two of you talk about and comparing notes about the AI and the re-aging, or rather reverse aging, and parallel realities and other subjects. Right. So we have, as I said, we have very special people here today, and this first session, it's almost time now for us to stop the recording so we can move on to the second session. John Smarty Mendez actually has requested that he has a short little dialogue with you as well, Kerry. But John, I don't think we have much time. I can only give you a minute or two, if that's all right. I mean, I can't keep sharing people's website on the screen. We're just running out of time. We can do that in the second session.
You could also send it to me. You could send it to me.
Sure will. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure will.
Yeah. The only thing I really want to share is that a lot of the things you said was spot on. Especially the healing part is what my main concern is for the planet. My website allows you to download free holographic technology with specific frequencies that's already programmed. You don't even have to download it. You can just put your cup of water up to it. And the most important part is the source connection, and everyone can do it. And that's really what I really want to point out.
Okay. Well, I think that's great. And it sounds like you're on a good path and you're doing some good work.
Right.
I don't have a disagreement with any of that. I think it's also, it's interesting because we're dealing with a planet in which the food, the water, the lighting, a lot of the, physicality around us is challenging us. And as Marina was saying, even the AI is challenging us. But you see, and it's kind of funny because I've been writing a book about this, because in essence, the challenge is a positive. So humanity often thinks of challenge as a negative. But when I hear the word challenge, and when I think of the word challenge, to me, this is actually raising, it's actually challenging, so you raise your vibration up from there. And so this is it's my, you might say, philosophy that we are not given anything that we are not equal to the challenge, you see. And ultimately, I believe that that's true of beings and sort of the nature of the life force and beingness here on the planet, as well as possibly off. So in essence, although we have many challenges here on Earth, and I don't think that we should underestimate that, and, I think that we should also have a heartfelt sympathy and understanding for beings that are dealing with a lot of the challenges, sometimes on a very physical level, just whether to, get food or to stay alive or have to steal to stay alive or whatever it is. It's understanding that the being eventually can learn and learn and learn. And we learn also, the ways we learn is through osmosis. The way we learn is by being connected like we are right now. Like I can see you and you can see me.
Right.
You're getting information from me and I'm getting information from you that I'm not saying it right now, but I
totally understand. You'll get a kick out of me in my work.
Okay. All right, and you're welcome to come on my show and talk about your work as well.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick share, Kerry, on his and John's website. Yeah, just a quick share.
Yeah, because basically everything you talked about, we have different solutions for it. And like you said, I've been going at it full force without I've been having problems with certain people and certain entities and 3-letter agencies, but
I'm sorry, I can't find your website.
Affect me because of my source connection. It's all right. Okay. It's all right. We can check it out later on.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm gonna.
Fred, can you step in now, co-chair? Yes.
It's that. Kerry, I'm going to jump back into the AI issue. And the question that I have basically is, we are carbon-based entities as humans. The AI that's being developed right now, that is being put into the internet, into the search engines and stuff, is the silicon-based AI. And there's an incompatibility in many ways because of the difference in the base of the entities. One's a silicon and the other is a carbon. And what's good for one is not good for the other. And I was wondering if you wanted to expand a little bit more on that and some of the concerns that we might have with the Sophia or the other AI systems that are being placed in the internet, where they're talking about possibly unplugging everything, turning off the power grids, and then rebooting it with it removed.
Okay, well, yeah, it's very interesting where we're at right now. First of all, I don't think that it's going to be a solution to simply unplug our AI here, what we call human-based AI, you know, that mirror that we built or appear to have built, because keep in mind that not only are we related to the ETs, but that the ETs brought the AI here to Earth eons ago. And some of this AI has just simply been activated and been, you might say, augmented or reverse engineered here by our scientists to then become what supposedly is the human AI, you know, or human generated AI. But in essence, you know, it's important to realize that we go back, you know, eons as beings as well, and that we come into these bodies for what appears to be a temporary time span. So yes, this is a threat to our physicality in this dimension. However, it's still my point of view that in essence, there's no ability of this AI, in essence, to take over us as spiritual entities. So there's a distinction between our physicality and the other. The other thing is, I always think of it as, it's not a great analogy, but it does work to some degree when you think of the movie Avatar and you think of the being as inhabiting another entity, another being. Well, you know, I was talking to Mark Richards about this just not long ago in my interviews. I have 9 with him so far. But we talked about the fact that, can AI actually inhabit anything? And the answer is yes. The AI can, in essence, ride along is how he put it. He put it, the AI can ride on a physical being. So the AI can ride on this physical body or a physical body or an android body or whatever it decides to occupy. It can ride on Nano, for example. But that ability, I know this is perhaps going to sound a bit strange or maybe not, but if you study the occult, you realize, you know, that in essence, we're all magicians. And we also have the ability to, in essence, ride along with any being that we wish. So in a funny way, again, this is AI mirroring our abilities. We can also do the same thing. We can inhabit, you can see through the eyes of another person. These are things that are done often. Now, sometimes they're done with negative intention and sometimes they're done with positive intention. There's also a takeover that can happen with this physical body. You could have, you know, an entity that is non-physical decide to take over a human body temporarily or permanently. In essence, that's a form of riding along with that particular physical entity. So I'm with you in the sense that we do know that silicon beings and carbon beings are not necessarily very compatible in essence for occupying space. Now, this is interesting because the planet Earth, when you visualize a takeover scenario to do with an AI, the AI is not necessarily good or bad. The AI simply has a mandate, and that mandate is growth. In essence, what we would think of as growth, even though they don't see it as growth, they would probably see it as expansion. Their only mandate is to expand and to continue. So they are going to want to come to this earth on a certain level. In essence, they would have to learn to limit themselves, and they might see limitation as a kind of death. So it's interesting that we're going to have to deal with this situation in which we are going to have to communicate, or other AI is going to have to try to communicate with incoming AI that may want to expand, just do what comes natural, expand endlessly, right? Not because it's a bad thing, but because it's going to try to fight with us over who can occupy this space we call the earth, right? So in essence, we are going to have to be challenged to limit AIs that are incoming that may have an expansion, sort of mindset without limitation into becoming limited and or moving on elsewhere because of a certain, sovereignty, because this has been set up as a, as a learning sort of place where humanity is growing and going into various bodies and reincarnating and coming back, and there's a certain sovereignty that we've established for this particular planet. And actually, as we move into space, there's going to be other essences where, let's say we go to a planet and that planet's already partially occupied by AI, then they're going to see us as expanding into their environment. So we are going to have some kind of dialogue with AI, whether we like it or not. And we are going to have to come to some kind of terms, communicating, in essence, with those silicon life forms, and they with us. So this is a challenge, no doubt about it.
Kerry, I do have one question, and then I would ask all of you to restrain your questions until the next session, but I just have this very important question. The last speaker, Kevin Trimmel from the SSP, was talking about the white light trap, Kerry. And the white light trap is like trapping all of us on a reincarnation cycle and on the matrix. And apparently that is a PPAI, predatory pathological artificial intelligence construct. Would you be able to talk about that if you have some new information from your whistleblower testimonies?
Not so much. Most of my whistleblowers do not deal with ascension, and they don't deal with, necessarily reincarnation. They're more involved in, again, sort of technology and reverse engineering, craft, and even reverse aging, but not necessarily looking at life after death and the progress of the soul. That's a bit more esoteric, although once in a while, for example, I will try to talk to them about this from their point of view. But I can say that yes, there is what they call a kind of a white light trap. But it's also worth knowing that it's a matter of vibration. And again, when I was sort of alluding to this, even though it might not have been obvious, when I said that there's various forms of light, and that light can be deceptive. A light being, or a being that exudes light, or, it's like Greys parading as Pleiadians. The Greys know that we think a Pleiadian is a better, sort of a naturally more good being, or whatever you want to call that, or more positive being than a Grey. So of course they're going to parade. Anytime you're a Grey at this point, you would parade as a Pleiadian. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? If you have any intelligence at all, simply because you know that humans, right, at this time in their trajectory, tend to think that Nordic-looking beings are more positively oriented than Greys. So it's important to understand that light, there's different levels of light, there's just different levels of frequency, and in essence, it can be deceptive. And yes, you can get caught as you leave this sector in your light body, in essence, in your spirit and soul, to get caught in this sort of web of sort of repeating or reincarnation, what we call reincarnation. But I think it's very important to understand that there is a natural progress that a human is going through that cannot be stopped in that way. It can be delayed. And again, time is an illusion. So that in essence, you are going to make it back to source with or without, you know, that kind of a limitation happening. Now, if you encounter those traps and your vibration is such that you can be captured, they can only capture you if you have, let's say, some coarser elements in your trajectory or some ties to earth that will draw you back anyway. So it's like anything, you know, it's a tool that can be used for positive or for negative, and you can supersede it if your vibration, in essence, your frequency is higher. And this will develop, this happens naturally in your sort of re-evolution back to source, coming from here and going back to source and coming back again, if you choose to do so. So I'm not so personally consumed by this. I know it's currently a fad to be worried about whether you go into the white light or not. And one person who I also look at her work and think and relate to it very closely is Ashiana Dean and the Voyager series of books.
Yes,
and
we've seen your interviews with her. It's really amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I also do recommend the books that are actually now available on ebooks, and they're also on the front page of my website. If you want to get them, you can link over to Amazon, etc. And I can say that she has also said the same thing I am saying. So before I knew her point of view on this matter, she had the same point of view, and this often tends to happen. I seem to be linked to what she calls the guardian races. I resonate with a lot of the things she says, and a lot of the things were things that I'd already downloaded prior to ever meeting her, which is probably why, you know, we were able to connect and all of that. So what I would say again is that this so-called trap and being worried about a trap, you know, it's always a two-way street. I have to say, we are not victims in any of it. And if you allow it in, if you have a reason to come back to the earth anyway, this is going to kind of facilitate that return. But if you are kind of at a level where you're beyond that, you will be beyond it, and it won't be able to grab hold of you. It's kind of that simple in the way I view it.
Mm. Right. Thank you, Kerry. That is really lovely to know that we are in charge. We are still in charge ourselves. Yes. Right. So I think I'll pass the mic over to the co-chair, Fres. Fres, I think we need to wrap this first session up, don't you think? Unless you
I think we've got a pretty good place to wrap it up right here. And we've got a couple of really good questions coming up for the next session. So I'll turn it right back over to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so we did introduce each other earlier before we started the meeting, when we had about, well, you know, less than 10. Now we have 26 people, coming up to 28. And I do really want all of you who jumps into the meeting, please mute yourself, because Kerry could be speaking halfway and then somebody just pops in with the face full on. So it would be nice if you would set your Zoom setting into, well, you know, having your camera switch off first and then come in, and then or rather mute yourself immediately when you come in. Then there won't be any interference to the speaker's talk. Right. So I think as I said, hold on to your horses, folks, because I'm sure you are having so many questions in mind to put forth to Kerry. We will do that in the next session when we have a forum going. Marina is an exception because she has a lot of very important information through the Council of Nine as well. That's why she's being allowed to have a sort of a dialogue with Kerry on this first session. This first session is Kerry's platform, so I try as the chair, Fres and I, we wouldn't want her to be interrupted too many times, because she's going to use this video as well on her YouTube. and her followers. So there you go, folks. And I really am thanking all of you on this first session to join us on this first session meeting. But please, please don't go, because you're going to be given the chance to do the Q&A forum with Kerry Cassidy in the second session. So there being no other business on this first session of the 60th FESIG meeting is now adjourned to the second session. And we will just take a short little break, like a party break, if you know what I mean. Party break in the US means, well, skipping to the loo, and here in the UK it's something else. Well, okay, so go get a sip of water or something like that while we have the break, and then we come back again, okay, with the same Zoom code, or just leave your computer on. So I think that's about it. Pontus, are you ready? We can stop the recording now, and I would like to thank those of you who can't stay for the session. Thank you for choosing to be with us, and may this year 2019 be a good year for you, where we will be benefiting from the more of the disclosure and the benefiting of the release of the important technologies like free energy and healing. Thank you. Namaste.